So do you want to start then?
Sure. You want to start the meeting at 2:06, I have?
Yep.
Okay. Where's my share button? Okay, can everybody see the agenda? So this is Pam Fields from Midstate. The rules are this is a public meeting, so when we're going to speak, we should say our name and title before we speak. I sent out last month's meeting minutes today because I just got back on Monday, so there was a little delay with that. I don't know if everybody had a chance to review them. We can start with the January 19th. Is that what we want to start with? Yeah.
Yeah, hi, it's Brian Holmes, a parent. Yeah, I was attending that meeting. I was having some difficulties with the teams. It kept cutting in and out, and I couldn't raise my hand or speak on the microphone, but I was attending.
Yeah, I put you in. I got your email.
Thank you.
You're
okay,
welcome.
Thanks.
So can you see them on the board, or do I need to reshare? Can you see the meeting minutes?
I see the agenda on here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to share again. Okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, they're very fuzzy, unless that's my eyes.
You got the same problem, Peter.
Are you? Maybe it's the size.
It's very small. I think it's the size. Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's a lot better.
Yep.
Tell me when to scroll down then.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, did you have something?
No, I'm admitting Kathy and
Oh.
Carly.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Can I go up?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oops. Sorry, Lori. Oops, there's a misspelling right there.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, at some point, it ended the Deloitte conversation and went to your updates, but I couldn't remember where that was, so it doesn't separate.
All right.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, I have no issues.
Does somebody want to make a motion to accept them?
It's Lori. I make a motion to accept them.
I'll second that. This is Brian.
All in favor? Any discussion, any more discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Okay, yeah.
All in favor? Good. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. So, wait a minute. Let me stop sharing and go to the next ones. Okay. It doesn't have who's absent. I didn't know if you wanted me to add that, Peter, or just leave it.
Let's see. Yeah, could you add that? I know Jamie wasn't there. I don't know if who else was not there at this point.
I wasn't there. And it doesn't look like Carly and her mom were there. Oh, Carly was
Oh,
there,
you
so
got
Carly
Carly
and her
there.
mom were
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
we
Go
I
ahead,
think everybody
Kathy.
else was there.
Okay. I don't know who this Alexa Calrocco is. She's not on the committee. Should I put her under guests?
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
Okay.
And I think Heather and Mary Pat did the minutes. Heather, if you can verify that. So if you guys have questions, Heather could probably. Let me know when you want me to go up.
I'm okay. Is it okay? Okay.
I think that's it.
Oh, look, that's it. Yeah.
Okay, can we have a motion to accept?
Yeah, this is Brian Holmes, parent. Motion to accept.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Is that Peter?
Yep.
Okay, any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And our next part on the agenda is the presentation by Deloitte. So I'm not going to share in case they need the screen.
And we do, so thank you. Great.
I finished reading that report this morning.
You didn't take it to Aruba with you?
No.
This is Betsy Bella from Deloitte. Can people see the slides?
Yes.
All right. So we've actually been able to present this to all the ARPA committee meetings, and we've heard some great input and feedback back. This group, we just didn't want to, the report was released kind of right before your next meeting. We wanted to make sure people would have a chance to at least take a look. So we're excited to hear your thoughts today. So this report was created with the guidance and review of DDS. And the purpose of the report is to collect information and leading practices about home and community services transformation in other state IDD systems to inform design of the Moving On initiative. This includes information on promising approaches to service delivery, how to motivate change, and ideas for how DDS can support stakeholders through the process. So it's a 60+ page report written with a government audience in mind. DDS has also chosen to share it more broadly. So it's gone to the committees and they are planning to make it public as well. The executive summary captures key information, including a table with considerations, recommendations. The research findings section is most of the report. It explains what the areas of research were, has a table that highlights some of the findings by state. This is especially good for folks who might not have time to read through the whole thing. And then it includes reporting of the most relevant information from the research. Just like in any research report, the team found far more in the process than could be included in the report. The report just represents the most relevant pieces. That's also why often it's just like a quick snippet of information about a program or a piece. Right. So the appendix then includes the report's sources, as well as some waiver definitions from certain services mentioned in the report. You know, states offer similar services, they'll be under different names. There'll be services with similar names that really aren't that similar. And so the residential service highlights section has services that are similar to or have really similar names to both Connecticut's shared living and their community companion home services. And then the additional services section has some pieces that were more unique or otherwise of interest to these efforts. So just kind of an overview of what's in the report. You know, again, if you haven't had a chance to look through it and you're thinking, when will I ever be able to dive through that? If you read the executive summary and the high-level research findings from other states, that'll really give you a snapshot. And if there's something you really are interested in, you can like do command find to find where it lives in the report to get some more details. Okay, so how the report is set up. It focused on 5 states and Connecticut. The states are Arkansas, Delaware, Maine, Missouri, and Pennsylvania. The emphasis was specifically on HCBS transformation, since the research is intended to inform Moving On, which is a transformation initiative. And so the research included looking to see, so as we were looking across the states, it was really focused more on transformation than necessarily trying to identify the end-all be-all of a perfect system, especially since that does not exist. And so actually something that was a key finding through the report is that Connecticut really is a leader when it comes to IDD services. And the research included looking to see if changes to waivers through CMS waiver amendment process might be necessary. And a key overarching finding is that there already is significant flexibility, at least in how the waivers are written, to provide supports that reach people in individualized, independent settings. You know, I know there's providers on the call who are already doing a lot of work in that space. And so the report focuses on ways to enhance and offer more choices in these settings and how to help create, take it from a waiver opportunity to an on-the-ground opportunity based on lessons learned in other states and from some Connecticut providers. So here, this just shows the interviews that were conducted. In some cases, we met with multiple individuals within an office. The appendix has full interview details. And when it comes to the Connecticut partners, those were identified by DDS. These are the categories included in the considerations and recommendations table. We'll share a few items from each on the next slides. So as you look at these, there are in the report itself much greater detail on each of these. Each section has additional detail in terms of how many. Each section has additional leading practices in it, as well as the ones that are included here. There are also a list of considerations for each category, which are the kinds of things that might be seen as a barrier, or they're just important to keep in mind as DDS and stakeholders think about where to focus efforts for each area. So some of the pieces that we pulled out for highlighting and discussion, although of course happy to talk about anything in the report. When it comes to individuals who receive supports as the primary focus, enhancing training and resources for DDS case managers that really focuses on alternative service options and new approaches from the DDS Moving On program. Making sure that case managers understand the full range of supports so that when they are supporting individuals and their families with planning, they can provide them adequate and full information about their options. And also making sure that case managers understand what's going on so that they are well positioned to partner with individuals who are really interested in transitioning to help make that a reality. Reviewing and revising or developing additional transition specific shared responsibility documents. As people are transitioning, they have to take on additional responsibilities. There can be additional challenges or complications when you take on more independence. And so documents like these and the Connecticut Mommy Follows the Person program has one. It's one way to make sure that the circle of support and the individual can think through some of these potential issues and come up with a mitigation plan or arrange for what they are going to do if that should come up. Under residential supports, continuing to allow providers flexibility to collaborate with individuals who receive supports, their families and others, and help support movement towards and use of some more creative residential approaches, and with an emphasis on clustered and supportive housing, assistive technology, and remote supports. And then build on and expand housing voucher programs. You can't help somebody transition to a more independent living setting if they can't afford to live, if they can't find somewhere where they can live. Okay. So then under employment supports, similarly to residential, continuing to allow that flexibility and providing additional support and guidance to help make it a reality. And with employment, specifically a focus on remote supports for individual supported employment and customized employment. Developing annual statewide employment goals. So having targeted goals with supporting data that can help Connecticut and DDS to measure progress. And then support providers to leverage and expand their network of business partners to help expand the range of jobs that's available to folks so they can really find employment that matches their skills and interests. And then provider engagement, providing non-financial recognition incentives. This particularly ties back especially to Missouri, where they have a purple ribbon program related to employment. And what they found is they set some really clear benchmarks for goals that were really important in the state. And when a provider exceeded those benchmarks, they received a purple ribbon designation. And the DDS equivalent in Missouri wrote a press release. The provider could put the ribbon up on their website, put it on their promotional materials. And then it also allowed families and individuals, while they were looking for supports, to say, oh, here's a provider that's doing really well in employment. I'm looking for employment services. Let me go ahead and consider working with this provider. All right. And so this can be also in connection with financial incentives, of course. And then hosting facilitate calls where providers can share updates related to moving on efforts, identify and spread promising practices, promote coordination, right? There's a lot of great ideas and learning already out in the provider community, and finding ways to help them be able to share and learn from each other to help make everything move forward for the stakeholders. All right. For assistive technology and remote supports, providing a trial period for remote supports adoption. You know, something that we heard a lot in the stakeholder input sessions, and that could be a concern for folks, is some hesitancy around not being sure how they're going to feel about remote supports. And so instead of jumping immediately into all remote, having more of an easing in. And then creating a technology task force. You know, Connecticut DDS is hiring an assistive technology director. So there's an opportunity for them to lead a task force that can help develop education materials. And the task force could include folks who use assistive technology themselves. Under payment methodologies, consider providing payment incentives to providers that collect and submit data that can help with benchmarking. As often, you can't do outcome-based payment without measuring your outcomes. But it's really hard to ask people to submit data on top of everything they're already doing without some incentives and help. And so that's where that comes in. And then if the moving on program, you know, if it gets a lot of uptake, if there are significant positive outcomes coming out, and if DDS has the funding, they could consider temporarily extending some of the transition incentives. Okay. And so we supported the DDS input sessions in January and provided this group with an update on that, and gathered stakeholder input on elements from this research and the initiative as a whole. We're currently working with DDS to refine the research based on the stakeholder input, including the survey results and meetings with DDS leadership, as well as meetings like this, into a specific transformation model, right? Helping to pick out what are the pieces that can help DDS and partners move forward towards the goals. It'll highlight routes to transformation. It'll emphasize DDS supports and tools for providers and other stakeholders for transformation. And more details will be coming on that soon. We are in progress and underway. Okay, so I'll stop sharing so we can all see each other again. Okay. And ask if there's questions or comments. I know some folks have had a chance to read it, so welcome your thoughts.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good report. This is Pam Fields from Mid-State ARC. It had a lot of information from the other states and Connecticut, so we were able to really see what other people are doing. Some of the stuff that we're asking for is in there. And of course, we're doing more than some of the other states are doing. So I just thought it was it was done well, and it had a lot of information that we're going to be able to use going forward in Connecticut.
This is Peter Mason. Kathy, you had your hand up?
Yes, I like the idea. Well, I like several ideas, but I thought it was really good that they said that you got to see the other state reports. I did the life course training as one of the ambassadors, and that was very helpful when we got to see what other states were doing. And there's always good things and bad things in every state, and sometimes they've tried things that work and other things that don't work, and you don't want to try them again. So I just thought that was very interesting to see.
That's Belle from Deloitte. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, there were a couple of things in there. This is Peter Mason that we saw. It had to do with one-time expenses for doing an apartment, and that it was able to be waiverable. So that's something that we will be able to explore. There was another one regarding benefits counselors and how do we make that a little bit more user-friendly and available to people. So we've already started thinking about ways to do that. So that's something that we'll be looking at. There was another one that was in there. I'll think about it. Kathy, do you have your hand up again, or is that from the first time?
Oh,
I'm sorry, it's from the first time.
Okay, all right.
Peter, this is Pam Fields from Midstate. When you were saying one other thing, on page 57, there was a whole piece on pre-tenancy and really helping the person walk through the whole process. I forget which state, it was Pennsylvania. And they have a system where somebody works with the individual to look at financials, you know, and how they're going to pay for it, but really walks them through finding a house, what you need for a house. So they were really more involved in the whole process.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
that's good. I liked it. I got a lot out of it. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Hi, this is Brian Holmes, parent. I did read the whole thing. I actually read it again today before this meeting. And looking at my notes from the first time I read it, I can't find some of the stuff the second time I read it. But you did talk about available housing options and explain outside of normal waiver services. I wasn't quite sure what they meant by that. And wouldn't that hold the whole thing up, trying to get it through in the ARPA timescale here?
This is Betsy Bella at Deloitte. So the report includes a mix of pieces that are really strictly meant for moving on within the ARPA piece, but then also some items that are looking further out, right? So like, for example, what Peter noted about adding into waivers more waiverable flexibility in terms of, you know, paying for some of the moving costs or some of the furnishings. That will all have to go through CMS approval. And so might not be able to fit within some of these ARPA movements, but are still pieces DDS is looking at and thinking about for a longer term to help sustain and continue the momentum.
Okay. Yeah, it was, it's Brian Holmes again. Yeah, the moving expenses and the setup expenses. I'm still a little fuzzy as to what you're doing in ARPA and what is outside of ARPA, to be honest. Peter, maybe you can just tell me that or not.
Well, I mean, whatever we set up, right now we have in our one-time authorizations, we can do up to, I think, $30,000, but it was pretty specific. And after reading this, it looks like we can kind of loosen that up a little bit and maybe extend some of that. And if we do anything, whatever we would do is try to make sure that it's not just related to this ARPA initiative, but it would be permanent going forward. So that's the kind of stuff we would be looking at doing.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I wanted to know that we'll be going forward with that. Yeah, that's it. The lifespan waiver. Yeah, that's pretty comprehensive, that one in Delaware. Yeah.
This is Betsy Bella from Deloitte. I'm just showing up the Delaware one where they got very specific and comprehensive around pieces that can be included.
Yeah, I think Pennsylvania did too.
Mm-hmm. So
And some of those are really important to us, like the security deposits and moving expenses. Those are huge pieces that really impact the individuals.
Yeah, I was surprised to see the security deposit, so that was good to see.
Yeah.
Heather, you have your hand up?
Sure, thank you. So there's so many different initiatives going on right now. I myself are confused, excitedly confused, because I see, you know, we just got a notice of opportunity about supportive housing. And we talked about that last time we met. We actually talked about supportive housing. That is great. And that was one of the things we asked for, is like being able to have rental assistance. So this is exciting. And so the report and the moving on initiative and the new things that are going on, is it all ARPA moving on, or is this just all happening at once, serendipity, or what? It's confusing. Sorry.
Yeah, I can see where, this is Peter Mason, I can see where it is confusing. We're using the ARPA funds to start a number of these initiatives. So we're using ARPA dollars for the non-congregate housing RFP. But if it shows that it's successful, then we'll continue that as we go on. But since we have the money now, we'll use it in that way. So a lot of the things you're seeing is we're using the ARPA dollars to start encouraging and incentivizing some of these services, with the goal of, do we get it up and running and it will be able to fund itself, or do we need to add additional dollars going forward? So we're throwing out a lot of stuff in terms of assisted technology, a lot of things for supportive housing. We're putting all that stuff out there to see how it all works. And our goal is to try to give as much support to the providers, and then look at it and say, okay, which one worked, which one didn't, and what are those supports that we need to make sure we keep going.
Thank you. It's Heather from Marrakesh again. That's great to hear. And do we have the flexibility if more providers run towards this notice of opportunity? Do we have the flexibility with the dollars to say, wow, we're getting a huge response and we're going to put more dollars towards this compared to something else? Or is this, we still have to get X amount on this moving on, and I just get worried about buckets of money, and we want to make sure we use it to its best ability.
Well, and we need to go back to when we started all this, and we had a short time period to get through what we wanted to do, get approved by CMS and move forward. And it was like one of those things, hurry up and slow down. So we had to hurry up and get it all in, and then we had to wait for CMS. And so a lot of those things that we put in, we hit the different areas. And so we may have more money in some areas than other areas, like supportive housing, we have more money in, just not knowing what we'd need. So if we find that this is, and I hope so, that it's very successful and there's a lot of providers that want to, my assumption is that we would then extend that further through the ARPA period at the very least. So if there's more than what we initially did, would probably have to then extend it or do another RFP with additional dollars and stuff. But that's the goal. We did that with assistive technology. We did those couple of grants, and we did it again a second time. And this time we put it out. We kind of put it as with no dollar amount in terms of a maximum amount that we would spend, so that we could just keep it open and let it go. We may have to close it at the end of this fiscal year and start it for the next fiscal year, but that's our goal. And if we need to do that same thing with supportive housing, which would be a great thing, then we would start looking at doing that as well.
Heather, again, if you don't mind, I had 2 more quick questions. Thank you. That is great. Just something to note. We have had issues with 3 landlords recently within the past months. One that actually sued us, even though we're not one of the leaseholders, and 2 that are looking for, money for damages and stuff. And even though the people that are renting the apartments, obviously there's some kind of discussion with the provider. Obviously, we're not just saying, oh, you go make this deal with the landlords. Their families and them might do it, but then the landlord's always looking for a provider. And so it's just expenses that we're asking for one-times. We're racking up about actual when they're not controlled, when the agency does not control the property. That's great. Let's use outside landlords, but it is expenses that are not allowable anywhere else. And if you need more information on that, or how much that's costing us, just because we do a lot of people that live out in the community and rent from landlords, and we want to do that more, there's this thing that happens after a while, and that costs money that we have to consider. And I also want to say I was very happy to see on page 32, it does talk about ICF IDDs of your report. I think I brought that up every time I had a chance to bring it up. because if it's on our 5-year plan and we're looking at reducing ICFs or eliminating ICFs, that would be great to add on to the plan. I think you would get about 10 customers immediately, right, Mary Pat? Immediately to convert or change or do that. And I think that is, I'm happy it was in the report, because then it keeps the door open for me to yap about it and to say that we'd be ready, willing, and able to discuss that transition.
And I know, that we've had a number of discussions with providers on that. And I know that there's higher level discussions going on about the ICFs. The tricky part is that it's DSS money, it's not DDS money. And for DSS, they receive 50% from the state, and then they get reimbursed the other 50%. So if those are converted to CLAs at DDS, we would need to get the full 100%. And that's been one of the tricky parts for it, is like they even though it's the same money in the end, for the budget wise, it would add 50% onto the budget from the start, even though it gets reimbursed after the fact. So there's the money piece of this is what makes this much more complicated.
But there's no dignity of risk living in an ICF. There's no chance for risk in living on your own and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, I mean,
we should put our money down.
This is Peter Mason speaking as a retiree. That if we could look at the ICFs and make sure that they're funded properly and make them more of the medical model group home, that would be much more beneficial. And then all those other individuals that have less significant needs or more of the behavioral piece would go back onto DDS. I mean, then that kind of would keep things in the different pockets where they need to be. But, as I said, I'm just a retiree, so no one listens to me.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
And since, I'm sorry, it's Heather Latorre, since Kathy Kalo can't speak and she was laughing that we're lucky about it, I will say that I was proud to see that our waivers are very flexible compared to other states. And, Kathy and I have had history with CCHs versus shared living, and that's why we created shared living. So, but I am glad that I'm proud of that in our state, that we have all those different waiver programs, and more so than other states.
Yep. We do. This is Peter Mason. Kathy, you got another question?
Hi, it's Carly. Actually, Carly is South Advocate. She had a comment on one of the employment things. Just wait a second, because she put it into her computer.
I really like idea of employment clubs too. Hear real examples, good job experiences in Connecticut.
Did you get that?
Yes. And I know we have, I know Demas does that model. They have the clubhouses that people can come, the employment clubs. I think that's something that we should be exploring as to how to do that. One of the changes we did make is that individuals now who have are in their own competitive employment and have individualized supported employment. I can't even speak right now. They're able to get their full lot amount, so that they then would be able to use those additional dollars for respite or other services, where before we used to just give how much they needed just for the ISE portion. Now we've been moving towards allowing them to have the full amount. That then would lend itself to having some funding to help with some of these employment clubs too, if they have someplace that they could find peers and supports to help them and assist them. So.
Okay, and as a parent, I was interested in I didn't even know, I mean, I did hear about the Supported Employment Leadership Network, but I didn't know that much about it. So I was just interested in some of that. Carly's in a program that's a community-based day service, and she does do some job things. She does social media marketing and posting, and does receive a small pay. But it's just interesting when it's somebody who has to have a more creative job.
Yep, yep. This is Peter Mason, and we have a couple of, we have one of an employment notice of opportunity for people who are looking to create their own businesses. So we have that out there, and we will be issuing an RFP where I just saw a draft of it, so it's getting revised. But that's to assist people if they're looking to have their own job and need assistive technology to go along with this. There'd be another portion to it to help in terms of the assisted technology piece. So we're trying to work through some of those issues. Pam.
This is Pam from Mid-State ARC. It was in the report, one state that talked about like a drop-in center, and we've been discussing this as we start to move to community-based employment, that there's going to need to be some place that people can touch base. And we're really having discussions on how do you create that in the community and make it fully integrated. So I just wanted to throw that out there, as Kathy was saying, that is something that the providers are thinking about and trying to figure out how to make that happen.
Fantastic.
This is
Anybody else have any questions for Betsy or Julia?
This is Betsy Boatdelight. I just want to circle back to something Heather said about there being all these different opportunities happening at once. And we mentioned that we're currently in the phase of working with DDS to, pool what are some of these ideas, what were we hearing from the input sessions, what becomes the nitty gritty of what kind of moves forward. And in that, we're also including these other pieces that are in movement. So these different notices of opportunity, these elements to help providers and other stakeholders understand how you can, even though they're technically separate, like it's all ARPA money, and then you have the different pieces moving, and there's potential future pieces that aren't ARPA money. But just because they are under separate programs doesn't mean you can't use them together. And so helping people to understand some of that process.
Great.
Because it is confusing.
Okay, anybody else? Okay. Move on to our agenda. Thank you, Betsy. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
Just give me 1 minute. Let me get her words. Sorry, it's hard to do all of that and do the minute. All right, here we go. Okay, the next on the update is DDS progress.
Okay, so one of the things that we have also started to do, actually Deloitte has done, is we started holding office hours for providers that have shown interest in moving with the plan. And we're looking at now posting the transition planning guide on the. Who's that?
I think it was Lori.
All right. We're looking at posting the transition plans and the guide on our website. Before, what we did is we gave it to all providers that showed interest in the survey. At this point, we're going to have that out there. So if people want to see what we're talking about, or agencies want to see what this would entail, we'll be having it on our website. I'm not too sure if it's there yet, but I know that they've worked towards that process. I will ask Betsy, can you just give like a little update on what the office hours what you guys have done and the feedback that you're getting from those providers?
Sure. This is Betsy Bella Deloitte. In the technical assistance office hours, in the first one, we provided some additional context and instructions based on some of the confusion we've heard related to the transition plan templates themselves, and then held open space for questions and comments. We're hearing more enthusiasm in these calls. We know there's a couple of providers who are actively working on plans. And so people are starting to have some nitty-gritty questions around pieces, especially the budget spreadsheet. And we are coordinating specifically with the finance group in DDS to see if there could be some more flexibility related to the budget piece and how it's filled out with, especially when there's changes in plans. But it's been a lot of sort of general questions and general asks in these sessions we've held thus far, as well as some people just joining to listen in. We've gotten really positive feedback on the sessions that people are like, okay, it's starting to make some sense now, which is good. And if anyone who was a provider on the call doesn't have the information for those and would like to be added, you can email us at ctmovingonssupport@deloitte.com, and we'll make sure you have the information. So as we answer questions live whenever we can. In other cases, we're taking the questions back and getting additional guidance from DDS. We are tracking all the questions and conversations so that it can inform FAQ documents that will be coming soon. That will be available for providers as they work through the process. Julia, anything you want to add?
Nope, I think that covered all the major pieces.
What's interesting is that I've been I attend most of the committee meetings, and a lot of the feedback I get is a little bit more negative. So it's nice to hear that there's positive out there, and that people are really starting to move forward and trying to submit plans and stuff. So that's great to hear. We have heard some of the states and some of the analysis we have heard from Deloitte in the groups. The individual and family committee, they really like that non-monetary recognition, like the blue ribbon agency. They really like that. We heard from the advisory committee who was disappointed with the state's analysis. Their opinion with that is, I think they thought it was going to be more of an analysis of DDS and all the problems of DDS and how to solve them. But that wasn't the objective of the state's analysis. It was to find out all the unique and creative ideas that are out there and what would be able to be done at DDS. And we've also had, they've had the feedback sessions. We have a draft out there, but we're looking to get an executive summary that we can send out to everybody. We did get the survey results back. And I'm just gonna make sure I get the right numbers here. So we had a total of, let's see how many. We had a total of 1,350 were sent back in the mail, and 352 were sent back online. So it was basically about 1,700 that we got. And just for those that remember when we sent it to the individuals and families, first off, we did it by mail because we want to make sure everybody saw it. This was our way of trying to gauge where people are at right now. And we'll do this again in December with the idea that we'll be hopefully providing more education, training, and opportunities So at this point, of the 7,000 that submitted, only 12% said they were aware of the plan. So that's a real small number. It's not surprising, in that, because we knew that was happening. What we do know is that there's been a lot of talk about what is this moving on plan and what all this is, which is great. That was part of the idea, is to start getting people to hear what we're talking about. There's a lot of different pieces to this about those that were aware of it. That more than a lot of them thought that this was going to be beneficial to their individuals, and there was some that thought that this wouldn't be beneficial at all. And the scary thing about all this, because I'm not going to go to all the detail, but when they asked, how do you want to receive information on the moving on plan? The majority, over just about 60%, said they wanted it in the mail. Well, going through the mail is probably the most expensive way of doing stuff. And we're going to do that for a while, but we really need to build up our email base. But just seeing this, if they want it in the mail and they don't want to go on their email, we're going to have a hard time connecting. So that's one of the things that we'll need to target, is how to make sure we're addressing the families and the individuals in a way that they know what's happening. When we did send out the survey, we did send it out in English and Spanish, since Spanish is the second most popular, or second most used language. So that's just some things from that survey. And when we talked about that on our DDS staff engagement committee, there's a couple of family members who they weren't too happy with the survey. They didn't think that it measured what we want. So we tried to explain to them, and they want to make sure that they're part of the next survey development, so that they have their input, which would be great. We're doing right now videos of supports. We have for remote supports, supportive housing, for competitive employment, and assistive technology. Our communications consultant has contacted agencies, and they now have identified individuals, and now they're working on a scheduling for the videos. We're hoping to have that done in March, so that we can have that available to use by providers, by case managers, the regions, so that we can really get the words out of what this new supports are. We're issuing a assistive technology certificate training program to DDS staff. We should have sent that out for provider staff. If we haven't, it should be coming out shortly. Once again, we're trying to get more people involved in terms of what assistive technology is and what it can do and how it can be used. We do have the AT grant, so we have the assistive technology grants out there for individuals and families and providers. So we know in the past, some providers have used that to purchase equipment for smart homes. And so, these are wide open, so providers can put in for those grants. We're looking at an assistive technology conference that should be, I think it's the 3rd week of June. And that's going to be in Cromwell. And that then will be preceded by a summer camp that we're setting up for assistive technology to have like a tech day at Camp Harkness. One of the ideas we're looking at is to outfit one of the cabins so that it has the smart technology, so that when individuals and families go, they can actually see the stuff being used. And as we talked about already, we did the non-project based housing grants. That's been posted and we're starting to get questions. So that's the update as of today. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. I see that Pam and Kathy's hands are up, so I don't know if that's from a previous thing. Just let me know.
It is previous. Sorry.
I have a question. I went on the site grants and I just didn't know how to go about it. Carly really needs sort of an assessment as a parent and a self-advocate, because she hasn't had one in a very long time. So I didn't know how to go about it.
So you should be able to go to your case manager with that. If you're having a hard time with that, just email me and I'll hook you up with how to do that.
Okay, because I did speak to her. She was a little conflicted about how to do it.
Okay. All right. If you want to send me an email, I'll try to get that going for you.
Thanks.
Sure. Anybody else have questions? Sorry, Pam.
It's okay. Next thing, this is Pam Fields from Midstate. Next thing on the agenda is the any other concerns or topics that people wanted to bring up?
So this is Peter Mason. So just to give everybody a timeline of where we're at. Deloitte has finished up with all their research and analysis. They're in the process of putting together the report. They should be submitting the report to DDS somewhere around the middle of March. At that point, DDS will be reviewing it and determining next steps, recommendations that they will approve now, and maybe there's things that need to be more on the long term. And once we do that, then we'll start moving towards our phase 2, the next step as we go forward. I know that we have some talk of trying to rebrand this from in order to make sure that people understand that this isn't just an ARPA initiative, that this is going to go on more long term. So as we get more information, we'll bring that to the committee.
Okay, this is Pam Fields from Midstate, and the last thing on the agenda was the ongoing meeting time. So I think, how far out, Peter, do we set it up? Do we keep going the same twice a month so I can let Keith know our dates?
I probably we may want to let's see. Let's go to the next 2 weeks and then see where we're at.
Okay.
We're really trying to need to work through what other areas people want us to review. I know we had a list, so I have to go back and take a look at that list to see, one of them I know was that's the shared housing issue. I think there were other pieces that we needed to look at to bring back to that committee. So Pam and I can go back and see where we're at with that. So let's continue for the next couple of weeks. And then after that, probably we'll be starting to hear about the Deloitte plan that comes out. So does that make sense? Okay. Great.
That is it.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Great weekend.
Take care, guys. Enjoy the warm weather.
Yeah, no kidding. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.